Rayle. I'm chair of CARD and chair of Sally Residents for Safe Water. And this CARD meeting is being recorded. So be aware. We haven't had to edit anything out in a long time, and I'd like to keep it that way. But if you're new and you have a question, please identify yourself. And of course, we try to keep attendance on this because that comes into play when we vote on something. The 3 of the last 5 meetings, people get to vote on any current issue. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Jack Eaton, our executive director, to run the meeting. Hey, Jack.
Thank you, Roger. We'll start with the minutes. Did you want to take that, Beth?
Thank you, Jack. And thank you, Roger. The March minutes, do I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Great. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Speak up now. No? Okay, great. The minutes are approved.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Beth. Appreciate it.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you, Beth.
You're welcome.
So then let's move on to number 3 on the agenda, which is the EPA update. I want to note that on Sunday, after review by and with consent of the CARD Executive Committee, Roger submitted CARD's comments to EPA on the Gelman listing on the NPL list. So I want to thank Rita and Roger for all the work they put into that. I appreciate that. It's my understanding that the Allen Creek's watershed group also submitted comments, as did Scioto Township and the city of Ann Arbor. So this is a pretty good showing, I think.
Yeah. And Bob Bailey and I also put in comments related to the publication.
Yes, many individuals did, and
James Moore did.
yes, indeed.
And I submitted one for SRSW that had some supplemental material that wouldn't fit on the CARD one. So
Yeah,
And-
it looked like a good turnout. Put up
Just to
the
let
EPA.
it, oh, I'm sorry. There's 75
Oh, and
comments.
Beth did.
There's 75
You
comments
put
on there now.
comments
And
in, personal comments. also.
mine's not even on there yet, and I sent it in on the 1st. So I don't keep checking, everybody, because I think we're going to have a lot more on there.
there were 75 a few days ago, like
Yeah.
maybe Friday.
Yeah.
So I just checked before the meeting. There's 75 right now. I didn't see SIO or the city of Ann Arbor's comments. I may have just simply missed it. I don't know.
No,
But,
and mine aren't on there yet, and I submitted those on May 1st. So
Yeah, it takes them a few days after they're submitted to post. So I don't expect to see the rest of them until maybe 4 or 5 days from now.
so that's all good, I think. So
When I submitted last night, there were 75 posted and 119 submitted.
okay.
And so more will be seen, although they had a disclaimer that they might not post if it was a form letter.
Okay.
Whatever that means. But anyway, so yeah, I would expect about 90 at least to be posted.
And Kathy, it was 157 this morning.
Oh, great.
Excellent. Excellent.
Oh, okay.
Did the
Yeah, it was-
townships submit?
I think people were busy last night after 10 p.m. then. The cutoff was midnight. Good.
Did the township submit?
I know that SIO submitted a comment, but I don't know about Ann Arbor Township.
Hi, this is Diane O'Connell. Yeah, we submitted with Dan Bicknell, also
Okay.
helped prepare the comments, and we submitted with Sierra Club.
Great. Thanks.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So I'm going to move on now. Is there anyone here from the EPA? Okay, I don't see anybody. I did see Georgina is here from Congresswoman Dingell's office. Ms. Frost, do you have anything to offer us?
Hi, everyone. Just that we also had put something out on social media requesting that people remember that yesterday was the deadline for submission. And, per usual,
Thank you.
the Congresswoman is, looking at the emails that she gets from this group and wondering if there's any other action she should be taking that folks want her to. So we were just trying to get the word out about the deadline yesterday. And if there's anything else that you'd like to share with us, then please do.
Thank you. And thank the Congresswoman on our behalf. So there is a link on the agenda to take you to a press release from the Congresswoman. Next on the agenda is Dan Bicknell. Do you have anything to offer us today?
Well, as Diane was saying, Ann Arbor Charter Township, Sierra Club, and Global Environment Alliance provided some comments to US EPA in support of designating the Superfund site. And I believe that Joseph, as well as SIO, provided comments for the county and SIO respectively.
Okay, that's very good. Seeing no hands, and I think we've exhausted this, I'm going to move on to the EGLE updates. I didn't see Chris on the attendance list here. Is Chris here today?
No, and we sometimes get a written update and I didn't get one. Did you, Roger? No.
Already. Well, we'll try to follow up with him. When Roger and I sat down with Phil Ruse to discuss EGLE's role in this, there was some mention that EGLE would be updating their database so that it'd be the same database that they use on every pollution site in Michigan. And we haven't heard anything about that since that conversation. So I'm going to follow up with Chris with a question about that.
Jack, actually, I have an update on that because I looked.
Oh, okay.
At the they have been working on it on their website, on the Rockworks website, and the Rockworks website, that database is updated.
All right.
But not completely. It has the things that would show up on that database, but the a lot of the private wells are low enough readings that they wouldn't show on that anyway, because they don't have, their cutoff is now 3 parts per billion instead of 4. So those readings are all under 3. So I was hoping Chris would be on because I was going to ask him about that, but I'll have a little bit to show in my update about this.
Yeah. Well, he tends to attend the quarterly meetings and send in written comments for these meetings, and he's not here now. Dan,
Yeah.
Question?
I think he was busy with the updating.
Well, I can give you all an update on the MS4 violation and the Water Resources Commissioner enforcement. And essentially, they're still a little bit going back and forth, but the state of Michigan is indicating that they want to issue an NPDES permit for the MS4 violation, which, as many people I think know, is not consistent with laws and regulations. You can't issue an NPDES permit for a non-surface water discharge. So essentially, they're really nowhere on updating the MS4 violation. In Evan Pratt's comments to the Federal Register, he noted that there's no movement in the enforcement of the notice of violation. On the GSI work plan, I'm not familiar with it, but I haven't seen a revision for the GSI work plan. And as we all know, on the NPDES permit update for Honey Creek, I don't think that they've announced that they are going to be having a public meeting, and at least I haven't heard of it. But we all know that it takes them quite a while to do pretty much anything up there in Lansing.
So we're coming up on about 3 years on that now, aren't we?
Yeah, we're past that, right?
Okay. Just another reason why the EPA belongs here, I suppose. Are there any other Oh, go ahead, Kathy.
There has been no decision made on the NPDES permit public hearing. I checked about a week ago.
Thank you. I appreciate that update. Go ahead, Rita.
Well, perhaps this is something that Georgia asked if there was anything that CARD might appreciate input from Representative Dingell's office on. And perhaps this is one, or is it not appropriate because it's within the state of Michigan? I mean, the NPDES permit process has just been, the most lethargic, slow-moving regulatory process imaginable.
I think the appropriate legal term is a hot mess, but yes.
I don't know.
I'm not sure if that's the appropriate thing to ask the Congresswoman to do because it is state law, but perhaps
Is there somebody we could ask?
we could probably seek a comment from Phil Roos, the director of EGLE, and or the Attorney General. Go ahead, Georgina.
I was just going to say that we had taken some action with the NPDES permit that the state had that folks were able to submit public comments for. And we had submitted something basically saying that we wanted EGLE to take seriously the concerns that were being stated by community stakeholders. We do have to keep it general like that when we're sending something in to a state agency or something that doesn't have an incredibly direct federal nexus. But for something like that, the reason that Mrs. Dingell would be involved is pretty clear. And so we just had to work within guidelines of basically just amplifying and echoing stakeholder comments in lieu of making our own. So that was something we were able to do when the public comment period was open for the last NPDES permit at the state level. So just wanted to put that out there that we did take some action there on that.
Well, perhaps even just a simple inquiry from the Congresswoman asking for a status update on this long expired permit might actually get some attention, but whatever she feels comfortable with. Go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, I did. You can see I added something to the agenda, asking if they would come to the next quarterly, which is next month. So maybe, and I know they do listen. A lot of people that don't attend these meetings do watch the videos after. So if you guys are listening, could someone please update us from Water Resources Division? Because Chris last month said, oh, I don't know, that's not my department, but at least Dan, we miss you, Dan. He would at least, I think, check with them before he'd come to the meetings. And they even came a couple of times. So I'm not sure. I know they're dealing with the loss of him, and Chris might be working in a bunch of departments right now, but there's somebody that should be able to update the public on this.
Good point. Go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, I think it's important, especially for the west side of Ann Arbor, maybe other places that we don't even know about. But we know we have wet basements down by West Park and beyond to the east. And there's a real concern about potential basement exposure. Dr. Bailey and Dr. La Cruzo have an article that they published that describes potential exposure issues. Was accepted significant journal. So I would really like to see something happen on this, and I'm glad they're doing the tests. I assume they're going to do tests this spring along West Park, which gives them a somewhat of an indication of what's going on with the plume on the center of the city, or just west of the center of the city. So I hope we would get some action on this. It's dragging on forever for some reason. Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, it turns out there's no the new permit really isn't enforced yet, right? Because we had a hearing on it, but we haven't had, and we had a comment period, but we haven't had a public hearing. So I'm assuming we're still under the old permit.
That's correct, Roger. You're still under the old one until the new one replaces it.
So what we have to be prepared for as a group is if the new permit comes out, and even if it's has some of the things that we wanted in it, we have to be prepared, mostly the local governments and the agencies with money. If Gelman, now Danaher, contests the permit, like they did back in 1999, whatever it was, the last week of the comment period, before, after the hearing, the local governments could not respond fast enough, and SRSW citizens themselves had to step in and counter contest the permit in order to keep Gelman's wish of 60 to 100 parts per billion discharge out of the creek and out of Barton Pond. So I just want people to be aware that we got to be ready to, if and when this actually happens, we've got to be ready to respond to anything that the company does that would, hurt our cause. So that's basically.
Roger, do you have what are Gelman's comments to the NPDES permit draft?
Gelman's comments? No, that's in the set of information that it's not, because I don't even think mine are in there. Well, as I told you, Dan, they got their packet of stuff about the NPL listing the same day I did.
No, I'm talking about, Roger, I'm talking about the NPDES permit. You were postulating that Gelman is going to want something different than is in the proposed new permit. And I wondered if you had any of their comments.
I have no idea.
On what they might be.
No, well, based on what they've done in the past, if they have some idea, they will not tell you ahead of time. They'll just do it at the last minute.
No, but they should have provided, like everyone else, like GEA
comments?
and CARD comments. So
yeah,
one in theory could talk to Water Resources and see if you could get their comments, and therefore, like you say, be prepared.
Well, there is the comment response, the rebuttal that one of Gelman's people did to my comments. Saying, well, I'm wrong here, I'm wrong there, I'm wrong there.
Yeah, I'm just saying it would be nice to have their comments if we're talking about a strategy.
Yep.
Yeah, if we knew what they're, yeah, we don't know all they're dealing with, but that would be a good thing to discuss sometime. What if you were them? What would you be doing at this point? And they've got to be prepared.
Yeah, but what I'm suggesting, please, is why doesn't CARD go get them?
I have made a note to ask for their comments. So I'll need the contact person for the
don't we have all the comments
for the NPSD?
Yeah, don't we already have all that?
I don't know. There's a comment period which is open right now, right?
No, it was over, and we have we have our own file of comments that we compiled from all the entities that sent them in that we knew of.
Yeah, I think
if you could look through those and find out if Gelman's remarks are in there and forward those to Dan, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll look at that. I haven't looked at it for a while, but
well, it's not just Dan, please. I would forward it to everybody.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We all have a vested interest, and Dan, now that this Superfund thing is moving along swiftly, he may be swift of foot as well.
All right. Good point. Thank you, Roger. I'm going to move on to Vince at this point.
Yeah, I just wanted to let people know that from the newspaper, I've read that Evan Pratt is stepping down, who's the Water Resources Commissioner. And there'll be a new commissioner be elected in November. So that may slow things down a bit because someone has to get up to speed, likely. So just to let you know, that's happening.
Well, that happened at the city too.
Yeah, that election will take place in November, and
Yeah.
I think they take office in next January. So he's with us for a
Oh,
while.
that's true. That's true. Yeah. Unless he steps down, I don't know. I guess he's probably not going to do that. He'll just ride it out to the end of his, cycle, whatever.
But thank you. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, and maybe since Vince brought up Evan Pratt, I'm sorry to jump back, but something I was a lingering question. That's regarding the MS4 violation. And Mr. Bicknell was talking about it. And question for Mr. Bicknell: is it really a tug of war, or actually who's on first regarding the state and the county on this? I guess I'm not clear where we are in terms of today with respect to MS4 violation in a nutshell.
Well, about a year ago, I sent out an email, and the sad story is that for about 2.5 years, the ball was passed back and forth between Evan Pratt as a Water Resources Commissioner and the Water Resources Division with the state on who was going to handle this. And eventually Evan gave up and said that the Water Resources Division of the state is taking on this MS4 violation. And I saw about 6 months ago a letter that was sent to more or less the city saying that they're still working on the MS4 notice of violation, which was issued 3.5 years ago. And they're thinking about maybe having Gelman take an NPDES permit to cover that violation. However, an NPDES permit only covers a surface water discharge. It does not cover a groundwater infiltration miles away from where the original seep started. So the update is that there's been no progress made on this MS4 notice of violation, which was issued by Evan, and he has let the state take over any enforcement of it.
Well, that's it's unfortunate, and as what Jack has said, this kind of illustrates kind of the need why hopefully we'll get better results from US EPA. I would hope that with Gretchen Driscoll, I assume I wouldn't call her the heir apparent. There needs an election that needs to be held, but she is the sole candidate running on the Democratic side. That there'd be some proactive leadership when she gets up to speed.
Yeah, I've been not surprisingly, I've been talking to US EPA Enforcement Division about this for 2.5 years, and they have people that are overlooking this now, given that it's been about 3.5 years since the notice of violation. So
it's a long time.
The federal government is looking, and your enforcement division at the feds are looking into this as well.
Good.
Slowly.
Good.
Because you know that the MS4 permit is a federal permit that was delegated to the state, and they issued the MS4 permit to the Water Resources Commissioner as the administrating body. And unfortunately, the administrating body has said that he doesn't have the ability or the resources to deal with it and kicked it back to the state. And what we're seeing is the state doesn't have the ability or resources to deal with it either. So that's why I've been talking with the federal government over the last 2.5 years to try to get them engaged to take some enforcement action on this notice of violation. But it's the same thing. Yeah, the NPDES permit is also a federally delegated permit. So I think it is very positive that Congressman Dingell did indicate strongly to the state that she wanted to have a public comment period. And again, where we are is haven't had any response from EGLE.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Beth,
Thanks for the clarification.
Beth, you had your hand up for a moment. Did you want to say something?
Well, I just back to that they want to do an NPDES in the Allen Creek drain, maybe at the outfall, which is our hair should be on fire. Like, why would you allow this? And again, then it is just pumping it directly into the Huron River and the Argo Cascades where kids are swimming. And I mean, the dilution is not the solution. It'll end up in someone's drinking water somewhere. They need to stop this, but we all know that, so.
Yeah, it is their proposal is a violation of the federal law. You're not allowed to issue an NPDES permit for a groundwater discharge that's a significant distance away. They had a Supreme Court ruling on that very thing, but unfortunately, the assistant AG in her writing to the city in the last 6 months says that that's the path they're on. So again, and I've told them, 3 or 4 years ago when this happened, that their idea of using an NPDES permit is totally inappropriate. But
right, because they're not even treating. It
right.
isn't an NPDES permit for after treatment of.
No, you can. No, it all it does is it sets a limit.
Okay.
NPDES means National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit, and that means that it sets the discharge value for whatever you're going to put into the stream or the creek or the navigable water, and groundwater is none of those things. And again, the Supreme Court ruled on this very clearly. And I've explained that to them 3 or 4 times. But the pressure that Gelman brings on them, threatening lawsuits likely, is what's encumbering this. The same thing with the GSI work plan. How long has that been hanging around? Gelman, again, provides some very sketchy work plan and turns it into a round of comment after comment after comment, and the state is just not able to muster what needs to be done to get some progress on either of these things, and all 3 of those things. So as someone said, it'd be nice to get the federal government in here to maybe move things along a little better.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kathy.
In the meantime, is there any role that the Ann Arbor mayor or council or our city attorney could take?
I think the answer is yes on the city attorney side. I think that it's possible for Aaron Donnelly and Ms. Kerr to start looking more carefully at this issue and be a prod to the state saying, come on now, we need to get some action here. So I agree that the city who has, and this is a violation within the city limits and impacting the city, has an ability to be more vocal, Kathy. I agree.
Oh, okay, thanks. And I brought that resolution forward as a council member. I've requested a meeting with the mayor on another topic, but I will add this to the agenda. And I think that our new city attorney would be supportive if she was presented with the all of the facts.
Yeah, I agree. Adeline is very constructive.
Yes.
And no one can say that 3.5 years is, not long enough to respond.
Right. Oh, okay. And I see Jeff Hayner has his hand up, so he may want to say something about this as well. Okay, thank you.
But you have to let me run the meeting. Go ahead, Roger.
Question for you, Dan. Since it's NPDES permit, if it was an NPDES permit, can they discharge directly into the drain?
If yes, they can, but it can't be groundwater. The infiltration of groundwater into the drain is illegal. Okay. And they have to clean up underneath the MS4 permit to background levels. before it enters into the Allen Creek drain. That's what the MS4 permit says, and that's where they're in violation. The violation is that they're above background levels of dioxane going into Allen Creek drain. So
Yeah.
they can't simply issue an NPDES discharge for that seepage, that infiltration of dioxane into the stormwater drain. And because again, an NPDES permit does not cover groundwater that has been discharged more than a significant distance away, is the way it's generally described in the Supreme Court case.
Okay. Yeah, because I want to make that clear. I mean, there was a time when they did a test discharge into the drain back in the early days. The city allowed them as a test. And I wanted to make sure that wasn't rearing its ugly head again.
No, but what they could do is they could put a groundwater extraction system in that West Park area where it's going into the drain. They could pull out the groundwater, they could treat it down to a reasonable level, and then through an NPDES permit, discharge it into Allen Creek drain. But only after it was taken out of the groundwater, treated to an NPDES permit acceptable level, could it be then discharged back into Allen Creek drain.
Because that's close enough to the discharge point.
Well, they could discharge it into any drain.
Well, but not back at the core.
They could discharge it anywhere they wanted if they wanted to run a line, but they aren't going to run a line all the way out to, you know, Maple Road or whatever.
No, but
Road.
But you said they can't discharge into the drain from the ground at the core because it's too far away from where the drain empties into the surface water.
That's not what I said, and that's not accurate. They can, if they pull it out in the West Park area and they treat the groundwater through an activated system like that that hydrogen peroxide unit that they were going to put in over there at the park well, they could then take that and discharge it into Allen Creek drain in the West Park area, down gradient of where it's going in. So it's a simple solution. They just can't issue an NPDES permit for it itself just going right into the drain.
How far back upstream can they do that?
As far as they have to look at it. They have to do a remedial investigation, which they've never, and then do a remedial design, which they've never done on this entire Gelman Plume. But that's what they need to do. They need to see where, and that's what the part of the original work plan was. What was taken away is that they were going to say, okay, in Allen Creek drain, we have these concentrations. Where is it starting from going into the drain? We know up by Maple Road, the drain, Allen Creek drain, isn't impacted. Okay, so where does the impact start and where does it stop? Okay, we know that now because they've done a good bit of work. In theory, if they put in a proper work plan, they would have done a good bit of work and they would be able to say, okay, here's where it's infiltrating into the Allen Creek drain. This is where it's above background levels. This is where we need to treat it. Here's how we're going to treat it. We're going to put in a treatment unit, suck out the groundwater that's impacted, put it through the treatment unit, get an NPDES permit, and discharge it into the drain, into the Allen Creek drain would be the easiest thing for them to do. But they haven't done the study. This is the whole point of the problem. They don't even have a work plan on where to put wells along the Allen Creek drain to see the concentration of the groundwater near the Allen Creek drain where the dioxane is seeping into. They don't even have that fundamental step.
Well, they never put in those shallow permanent wells that you asked for.
Exactly. If they'd have done that 8 years ago,
They'd have the data.
They'd have some data. So anyway, sorry to hijack it, Jack. But
well,
it's a sad story, and the more you talk about it, the sadder it gets. I
have a quick clarification question. So if they were to do the study and the work plan and extract and treat, they needed a discharge permit to discharge that treated water into the Allen Creek pipe. But then they also still need this permit that's
Yes.
in violation now, which is due for renewal as well, right?
I don't know when the MS4 permit they
Okay.
currently
So
have is over.
The only reason we're talking about it is because it's in violation. Okay.
Yeah, it's at there. Remember, as Kathy said, the city, I think it was in January 2021, had the Water Resources Commissioner issue a notice of violation. And that's the violation that we're talking about, the dioxane infiltrating into Allen Creek drain above background level.
So I think another route that we can take is to ask our county commission to put some pressure on our drain commissioner to be a little more active here. I'm going to move on at this point. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, it has come back around again that you can see how politics can affect things on the ground here. And yeah, I would say the push to get Mr. Pratt to do something is a better bet now than, you know, whoever's going to take his seat. And down that road, the city of Ann Arbor, of course, has Sue McCormick now running our public utilities under $180,000 contract until we find a permanent replacement. And so Sue McCormick is now in charge of our water system.
Yep.
For what that's worth.
Okay. So then you can put your hand down and I'm going to move on. Unfortunately, I don't think we have a representative from Washtenaw County here. I didn't see you pop in. So I'm going to skip that. Is there anyone from Ann Arbor Township that would like to speak at this point on anything that's going on there relevant to Gelman?
Hi, Diane again. No, we don't have much more going on there. We do thank Dan Bicknell for helping us get the comments, but we have other things, but not more related to this. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having or for working with Dan and submitting a comment. So Kathy Knoll from Scioto Township, do you have anything this month?
No update on the Knights of Columbus yet. And the Scioto Township Board resolution requesting EGLE establish a residential testing program. I think I addressed that last time. I don't have that in front of me right now. We got a response from EGLE essentially denying what we had requested, stating that they were already in compliance with the CJ. And there are no additional issues. As Jack said earlier, SCIO submitted comments to the EPA during the public comment period, and I forwarded a copy of those comments to Roger and to Jack.
Thank you very much. So then moving on to City of Ann Arbor. Erin, are you here?
I am. Yeah, I have a couple updates.
Oh, excellent.
So we, Gelman installed a new Series B well associated with our settlement agreement near Ventura Court in early April. Sorry, there's a little bug flying around my head. And we received our first reading and there was no dioxane detected. So it remains a mystery why we're still seeing it in Montgomery, in the Montgomery well. So the never-ending mystery. And I've taken some preliminary steps to we're going to start sharing our Sentinel well water quality data with EGLE. So hopefully that will be included on the EGLE database soon.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Is that about where it was?
Ventura Court and right around the intersection with Bemidji. Yeah.
Okay. And that was non-detect?
Non-detect.
What do you have the well log and everything for that? that you can share?
I believe we do. I can check if we can. Yes, I can.
Yeah.
I can follow up.
I mean, this is one of the things that I'd like to see the city do is when they have a well like that that relates to Gelman, is to make all that information available
Mhm.
to EGLE so it can be incorporated into the centralized database.
Yep.
And that would include like the Montgomery well information that, you know, has never been shared.
Okay.
Thank
Yep,
you.
I can follow up on that. Yep.
So thank you. I appreciate Aaron attending the meetings, representing the city, but I want to mention that I did talk to a couple of city council members. The city of Ann Arbor is the only entity that doesn't have a designated elected official as a liaison to CARD. I've invited them to do such. Council members Iyer and Radina have said they'll bring forward something at council to designate a council member to start attending. They haven't done that yet, as nearly as I know. And that's not to undermine Erin, because she probably knows more about this than any council member will know. But when we want to do something like ask the city attorney to do something, it's probably best to go through elected officials. And it would be nice to have somebody come to our meetings so they can be up to speed, so that when we want something, but they're here to have us ask. So I just wanted to let you know that I did do that.
And Aaron, we still haven't had our sit down for me to answer any questions that you might have and fill in some of the gaps that you might not have gotten information on from your predecessors.
Riser's here.
So moving along, we're at the point on the agenda where it's executive board. Is there anyone here to speak about the Yale Superfund research program? Seeing no one, I'm going to move on to the.
Heather did want to speak real quickly on her survey, I think, though.
Is she here?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Heather.
Hi. Sorry, I can't speak to what the Yale Superfund research program is doing. I've been trying to get on Dr. Vasilio's calendar to even discuss the survey and what's next. The survey closed at the end of February, and I've been analyzing the results. We had a solid 20 respondents who really sat down and evaluated it. So I had some good data. And so the good news is the survey is internally consistent, which means at least it's saying what it's supposed to say internally. And the next steps would be to start deleting some of the questions that really don't get at what we really want to intervene on. And for that, I really need some more expertise. It's outside the scope of my doctorate. I'll be graduating in July, hopefully. So I'm trying to, yay me. I'm trying to find an avenue for it. And I have been informally working with some folks at Yale. But in order to go through the Superfund research program, I actually have to write a grant for that, or have Yale write a grant for that. So that's a conversation to be had. I don't know if that's what they want to work on. If not, I will try to find another avenue for publishing the survey once I try to edit it a little bit, so that it can go into the public realm. And I'll probably just pay personally to get it into the public realm so that other people can use it, not intending to copyright it. So I'm hoping that it can be open access. It's a useful tool, and it can be adapted that way. I was looking at your basement, how do you get it, what people want in terms of approaching the basement issue. And I think a survey like this might be useful to adapt in that way and try to start canvassing stakeholders in neighborhoods about how do they want their wet basements to be addressed or tested. That might be interesting. At any rate, it's done. I will share the interesting data points in the longer paper. After 3 months, I have to try to attempt to get it published. And as you know, if I disseminate it through any other avenues into the public realm, and this would count as a public realm, then it might jeopardize publication. So I don't want to do that. But at the end of my efforts to publish, I'll send you guys a official copy of the dissertation. It's got some interesting points in it, but nothing earth-shattering that you don't know. But it does take more of a philosophical stance to why you're in the conundrum that you're at, with the circular logic of going to states and states pushing it back down to local and local not having resources. So there's a lot of leadership that you guys can provide with all the expertise. So first, I just want to say thank you for inviting me in as a student. It's really critical. I encourage you guys to continue doing that, because you never know which student is going to be able to strike a chord with some politician or, make progress on something. So I appreciate that very much. So thank you. And you'll get the final report at least by July 26th when I walk the stage.
So congratulations. And thank you for all that you've done with us.
Thanks.
Go ahead, James.
I just want to personally congratulate Heather as well. And thank you for your leadership, and thank you for participating with us. We're very glad to have you.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks.
Go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, I just thank Heather for her efforts, and hopefully we can do some work on basements, because we know Ann Arbor is a great place to live, but we got a lot of wet basements, and unfortunately they may expose some of the homeowners in years to come, if not right now. I also wanted to make a point, or just a statement of it, that we, Rita, I, and Roger did a table at the Earth Day Fair, and it was well attended. We did hand out a lot of QR codes so they could scan and enter comments. We encouraged them to do that. We said, EPA comments don't have to be fancy. They like personal comment. And almost everyone who took the little QR code were supportive of that and thought it was a good idea. And I'm not sure how many submitted, but and Roger had a graduate student that he worked with who helped out. Jennifer, I forget her last name.
Well, she's here, I think.
Is she? Well, great. It was great to have her. She did a great job and very helpful.
Yeah.
And very well attended. I thought it went well, and people were very interested, and some people were really interested. But yeah, I think it was worth doing. And thanks, Roger, for all your efforts on that, and Rita.
Well, thank you, Vince.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Righty then. Moving along. James, do you have any update on the state legislation that we're tracking?
Thanks, Jack. I do. I don't know if it's so much new news. I'm going to put a shameless plug at the end of what I'm about to say. Actually, I'll do it right now. I'm going to wear two hats here. One is, yes, I am an executive member of the executive board of CARD, but also, and my not day job is a member of the legislative committee for the Michigan Sierra Club. And I wanted to announce that our lobby day is next week. So those of you who are members listening in, if you have not signed up, we would love to have you, because we're going to be pushing the polluters pay legislation. And obviously, it would help relieve some of the pressure and some of the issues we've been talking about here. What are the chances of the legislature acting on it immediately? We've had some issues with the legislature in the fact that it's been a divided government. Two state representatives last year ran for local office. One, their seats were vacated, and special elections were only held late last month, which the replacements were had. And the House is now 56-54 under Democratic control. So once again, more meteor bills are going to come out. Also, there's the issue the legislature is going to take up the budget. So this bill, the package, just as polluters pay, is probably taking a back seat for the next couple months. But it's not to say it's not on legislators' minds. I think the most important thing that is important for us with this legislation is Senate Bill 606 and House Bill 5242, which would again require polluters to pay for land and water to be stored as much as technically feasible, meeting best managed practices. It would also have Senate Bill 607, House Bill 5245, which allow EGLE to set cleanup criteria without the Administrative Procedures Act rulemaking. There's also legislation that provides a cleanup for orphan sites. The one question that I will be asking at Lobby Day next week, which I'm not really clear on, and maybe even people in McCard be able to answer this question for me. Even with passage of this legislation, I'm not sure whether or not it would immediately supersede the consent decree, or whether we still be bound of it short of action, although the state would have more powers if once this legislation is approved. So I will be asking that and finding out how that would work should this bill become law. But at any rate, they're likely to take it up later this year, and I will keep you posted. And if anyone has any questions about Lobby Day, feel free to seek me out and directly either chat here or after the meeting.
So James, which day is Lobby Day?
It is next week, Wednesday, May 15th.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Do any other executive board members have anything they want to add before we turn it over to the chair? Seeing none, go ahead, Roger, with your update.
All right. As we mentioned before, CARD submitted comments, and I also submitted some supplemental comments on behalf of SRSW, and the links are here in my notes. And this diagram that's on SRSW still works for looking at the comments. So if you go down to the browse all comments, you can get right to. And when I typed this up, there were 175 comments. Would you say there was, Dan, 150 some? So, yeah.
How about that, Roger?
Yeah, and maybe even more because, you know, that I don't know how many got submitted at the last minute. I know the SRSW went in maybe a couple hours before the deadline. They had a little snafu there because I had 14 files as attachments, and 3 of them got rejected because I had a plus sign in the file name. I had to go back and change the plus sign to something else. So those got included. So I'm still waiting for EGLE's regular Gelman database with data through 2023, so I can update the Google Earth mashups and Tableau public visualizations. But and I did review with EGLE of the process that they need to use to make that process, to make it updating easier, especially when they get data from outside, somebody else than Gelman, you know, like from the township, and that there should be standard formats and standard naming conventions for file name so that Chris doesn't have to do the same detailed by hand work that Dan Hamill did. So EGLE's Rockworks map has been updated, like I mentioned. So here it is. This is the live version that's on EGLE's website. And if you zoom in, and you can get details that you didn't see before. It's you know, it's a little kludgy still to use because you get this little arrow up here that takes you to other layers that might be showing. I think it's set up well enough that the important stuff like the reading on a particular well comes up first. At least that's good. And somewhere they used to have where you could go back and look at all the history of that of a well that you click on. That might be something they're still updating. Anyway, so this is promising. I just looked at this today, actually, so I don't have a lot more to say about it. I've gone ahead and overlaid this on my Google Earth mashups just to show how it looks versus the old ones. But the other thing I did is I said, I wonder how many other sites are using Rockworks to track dioxane plumes. So I did a search for it. And this website came up that said, well, here's one. And it had this series of layers. And I looked at this and I said, wait a minute, that looks a lot like the Rockworks plume for the Gelman site. And it was. This is something that Rockworks put out on their website to say, this is what we can do. This is a state client came to us and wanted to do all this, you know, but they never mentioned Gelman, of course. Well, these are images from their web pages for this. So they have not only what we've seen, I just showed you a minute ago, but they have these other layers, apparently. Not only that, they have all of these by year by year, showing what their model, how the plume, according to their model, has grown over the years. And this was done in, apparently, because this goes up to 2018, this apparently was done in 2019 or 2020. And it's 2024. I'm just now seeing it because I stumbled on it. Like, wait a minute, shouldn't we have had a look at this? Turns out there's a video. Now, anybody recognize this place? This video has been out there for a long time, and it shows what you can do with the software, and it's going through year by year, and you can see the plumes change and things like this. Well, God, this is nice stuff. But it's not publicized. I mean, we don't have it. Has anybody else on screen seen this? Any officials? I really kind of disappointed that nobody from EGLE was there, because not only is it been done, they use almost the same coloring thing that we've had. You know, instead of the just different shades of purple, they have it colorized better, more user friendly, I should say. Anyway, this is there, and then they go through these other kinds of simulations that show what it can look like in 3D over time. It just surprised me, and literally this was just today that I discovered this. So there's that. And this goes on for like 6 minutes. I'll just jump ahead and a couple of these spots here, if it'll let me jump ahead here. You know, it can do slices, so it'll go through the slices of the cross sections, so you can kind of see where dioxane may or may not have been over time, or it's actually a static, but you can see where higher levels of concentration. I imagine these are all wells, and I think this might be like the screened elevation or something. There's not a key for all this stuff, but this is obviously they wanted to show you what their product can do. And maybe this is going to be their best model of how you can use this at a complex site like this. But the fact that we didn't have any inkling of this until I stumbled on it today is quite astounding. Anyway, there's that. So, you know, it's if anybody else finds anything like this in their searches of about this problem, by all means, forward it. What else we got? Oh, I wanted to say something about how Gelman is, you know, by using ozone oxidation, they're creating new carcinogen bromate and discharging it. This is all since 2005. So they could save half their treatment costs. And also they're not able to go down to non-detect like they were with the ozone, with the UV oxidation. Ozone, apparently they can't get to non-detect very easily. So they're monitoring this, but only at the discharge point and a half mile downstream from the mouth of Honey Creek. Half a mile from the discharge point, from the mouth of Honey Creek. They were supposed to be sampling it right where Honey Creek empties into the Huron River. It should be like right there. Instead, they're sampling like a half mile downstream. So of course they're not going to find any bromate because it's already diluted by the water. So that point of monitoring at the mouth of Honey Creek was in the city's 2006 settlement. And we only, and the cultural only way we found out that they were doing it that far down several years later is because that's where Dan Hamill started sampling for dioxane, was a half mile downstream of the mouth of Honey Creek. I said, no, you should sample it right there, you know, right close to the mouth, right at the bridge of where the bridge goes over Huron River Drive, where just before it empties into the Huron River. And Dan started doing that, but I don't think Gelman started moving theirs back, because that might show some bromate entering Huron River right at the mouth. So they got 2 monitoring points. Well, that's better than what they did for 20 years when they were discharging dioxin into online treatment ponds and not having any monitoring of the near surface groundwater, the lower groundwater, they had no monitoring of what they were putting into their treatment ponds for 20 years. No monitoring. They should have been monitoring that all along. The EGLE deposition that Dow in their case against Gelman sued Dow and arguing that case, Dow used Dr. Etzel, who's long gone now, but he was a professor at Purdue. Dr. Etzel explained why that was a bad idea at the time, to not monitor. Instead, after Dan Bicknell discovered the dioxin running off the Gelman property into the Third Sister Lake, they started looking at wells, local company wells and homeowner wells. And sad to say, but that's where we're back to with this part of the dioxin that's made its way north near my house here, is that they're back to using homeowner wells as the first detection points of where the dioxin really is. So we're repeating the same mistake. The company is repeating the same mistake that got us into this mess in the first place, both with the offshoots of dioxin and with the bromate that they're creating. So I just wanted to make that point. This was something I found in the documents, this latest NPL dump that I got like a week before we had to get our comments in. This is from reference number 988944. Again, this link will take you there. But this is these are images from the page. And it basically was done by this consulting firm. There's a Weston in here. I don't know if it's a predecessor to the current Weston that's doing the taking care of this for EPA, but this is their this is one of the documents that came through on the NPL. But it basically says that back in the early days, 1986, you do these calculations. They claim that dioxin in the affected groundwater is probably at least 10,000 pounds and not greater than 40,000 pounds. I should have caught this earlier. This was the same document was in the SI dump that was done last fall. I didn't catch it there, but I did catch it this time. I'd always thought that the figure that they thought was the first figure that they knew about for how much dioxin is in the groundwater, 64,000 pounds. That came through the repository a couple decades ago. Now I've got one that goes a little earlier. So I can now update my little chart that I've had over these years. And it's not just 64,000 pounds and then late 80,000. Even before that, it was 10,000 to 40,000 pounds. So this is how much dioxin they used over 20 years. We don't know the shape of this curve, but then they stopped using it. And this is how much they said was in the groundwater. And then they said it was this much. And then they said it was this much. And this is the blue line is how much they were actually removing. I haven't updated this for through 2024, but it's probably pretty close to this line. We don't know how much of this original dioxin is still left in the ground. We do know that the prior two, now three estimates were all wrong. We don't have a lot of confidence in the company's ability to estimate how much dioxin is left in the ground because they've already removed more dioxin than they said was down there. And of course, we're left with this. Much, much bigger than what it was when they first started estimating. So it's just a reminder to people that, you know, we have to pay attention. This was left over from last card meeting. There's some addendum information here that you can go and look at back from 2014, some comments that we made back then that are relevant again today still. And there's also this settlement that then DEQ made with the company as part of the court case. The judge had $15 million of fines in abatement, and the settlement was for 1/10 of that, which was supposed to be used to handle all past and future monitoring costs of the state. Now, I don't know if it's true, but I don't think $500,000 is going to be enough to handle all the monitoring that's required. And that's why it's good that the EPA is going to come in and they're going to force the company to pay for any monitoring that needs to be done. And hopefully we'll get back to our request of if any homeowners within the half a mile of a hit in Scioto Township and Ann Arbor Township, if they want their well tested, the company should pay for all of it. So I just, those two references are there for people to look at if they want. So at this point, I'll take any questions and go back to the agenda. Oh, I got to finish up. That was my chair notes. Any questions on that?
Now, Roger, on the data that you found in that rock works, do you know the source of that data?
It's not data. It's just a blurb from the company itself.
It's a
I'll put
simulation.
that in. I didn't have time to put it on my notes, but because I just found it earlier today when I was getting ready for this. I did a search for Rockworks dioxin. In fact, let me look at that. Maybe I just do that and see if it shows up. Oh, that's, I guess that's what I said.
Oh, is that where you found it? Okay.
Yeah, apparently.
So no idea if that's
here it is. Here it is. Case study. Oh, that's not it. It's the next one. Anyway. Somewhere in this list. This is probably the video.
Okay. All right, so it hasn't been verified by anybody and it's just a simulation.
Well, it's their marketing.
Okay.
It's their marketing.
Okay.
And they obviously have a lot of the data.
Yeah, it looks
So
like
I don't know, but in the blurb, it says, you know, a client, the state of Michigan, well, a state came and asked us to do this. So I think maybe it's taxpayer funded. So I think maybe we should have access to it.
I would think so.
So that's a good question. If you want to help me dig that out, I'd appreciate it.
Hey, Roger, do you think EPA is using Rockworks?
I don't really care if they're using Rockworks or not. I just wanted to know if anybody was using it other than the state of Michigan on the government side.
Well, it looks pretty sophisticated. It'd be great if they use that to educate the public.
I would not. I would not object to any of the. I don't know if that's the best modeling to use, based on what I've seen to date, except for today. Today was better than I've seen in the whatever I've seen online from the state. So I'm encouraged that there's a lot more capability there than I was aware of.
It could be very valuable to explain things to people.
It sure would.
I think. Yeah.
If, you know, we could have started on this maybe 4 years ago.
Well, thanks for showing us that.
Anyway, get back to the. All right, so that's the end of my chair notes, but I will say that our UMSI project team, and I guess it isn't that big of a surprise. So this is right here in black and white. Won first place in a division at the UM Expo just last month, which pleases me a lot. And there's another backstory that goes on there that it turns out I knew one of the judges from our trips out to California. She comes back and advises us. I didn't know she was judging that particular team, and in fact, she never made it to that team to find her. So she never got to that day. She had too many to go through. She couldn't get to that team. So there's no collusion there because she's never used her judging ability on that team. But the team was good enough that they won their first place in their division, which was really good. And that's the kind of thing I want to see more of from the different schools and colleges to, you know, they can use something where we have rich local data and a lot of resource people that can advise to get younger people involved in this, and you know, and older people too, Heather, to address this problem. And you know, because we don't have all the answers ourselves as citizens and local people, but together we should have the resources to take care of this over whatever time period it's going to take. I do want to now turn it over to Sophia. Are you on here, Sophia? This is
Yes, and I'm joined by two of our other members, Kimmy and Sriram.
yeah.
They're also
So
going to be on the
let
call.
me bring up your slides, and you can direct me. Do you want to do it as a slideshow, or do you want me to
Yeah,
jump
that would
to
be
certain
perfect.
ones? Okay. And you just tell me when to advance.
Yeah, perfect. So this is going to serve as kind of a quick introduction to who we are as a project team at the University of Michigan, a quick scientific overview of the project that we're working on this year, and then we're
Can I
going to
interrupt
end
for a
with
second?
some.
Let me
Go
interrupt
ahead.
for a second. Just to make clear, this is a different team than I was just talking about a minute ago. Are you going to present at some kind of expo too?
Yes, we'll go over that in our presentation.
You
We
know what
compete
the
in
first the other team, you know what their first prize was?
No.
$5,000, $1,000 each.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said. So there's some incentive there besides just doing good work.
Yeah, so like I was saying, so after we go over a little bit of an overview of our project, we have some like discussion questions basically that we're hoping to get your feedback on. So that's how we'll end the presentation, but I'll hand it off to Kimmy to start us off.
It's a big team.
Yeah, so thanks, Sophia, and thank you all for having us. So as we've mentioned, we are the Michigan Synthetic Biology team, and so we are a student group of around 30 students, and we are a research and engineering design team at the University of Michigan. And every year we develop and execute our own research project in the area of synthetic biology with the end goal of competing at an annual conference called the International Genetically Engineered Machines, or IGEM competition, held in Paris. Next slide. So IGEM is the world's largest synthetic biology competition, and their motto really encapsulates their goals. And so their motto is local people solving local problems all over the world. And this competition has high school divisions and postgrad divisions as well, but the undergraduate is the most robust, and that's where we compete. And our team has been really successful in recent years, earning gold medals the last 2 times we've competed at IGEM. And so what do we do? Synthetic biology is a really multidisciplinary field that's very up and coming right now. And it's basically just the idea of combining engineering principles to develop biological parts, devices, and systems, or to redesign existing systems found in nature. And so we really apply this to our project team every year to create new solutions to important problems in our communities. So a huge part of how we're judged at IGEM is integrated human practices. And so this is basically to promote the idea of thinking creatively and deeply about what our project is doing, the impact that it's making, and just the good that we can do with our project. And so for us, HP involves a lot of engagement with community members, stakeholders, existing systems to sort of advise and guide our project in order to be able to do the most good with our project and to do it responsibly. And so for this year, yeah, we really want your guys' feedback to help guide us with our implementation of the project that we're going to be discussing about 1,4-dioxane.
Yeah, so at the IGEM competition that our project will be presented at, we're going to compete in the bioremediation village or division. And so essentially what bioremediation is it's a process where a biological system is employed to remove some sort of pollutant that exists in the environment. So obviously here that would be 1,4-dioxane. And so in bioremediation, organisms like bacteria can be used to basically metabolize specific chemicals without introducing new chemicals or other harmful substances into the environment. And so, like Kimmy mentioned, IGEM really stresses the importance of solving local problems, since solutions to these problems can, typically be adapted to other problems, maybe even on a global scale. And on our team specifically, we have many Ann Arbor residents, so students who went to high school in Ann Arbor, went to the University of Michigan, and now are on our team, who have actually come across this whole 1,4-dioxane issue in previous self-led research. And a few of them actually suggested this issue as one for our team to tackle or work on for this project. So that's sort of like how we stumbled upon this to work on. And we are really interested in pursuing an environmentally focused project, since in past competition years, we've typically had like a medical focus. So this is something new for our team. And we're inspired by already published research. Here is just a general review article about a bunch of different methods that have used or are beginning to be used in terms of bioremediation for 1,4-dioxane, specifically in water. And so really quick overview of our project. There's going to be kind of like three main components. So in literature, there's a specific enzyme called THFMO that has the capability to break down 1,4-dioxane. And so basically we're going to design a plasmid, or like a circular double-stranded set of DNA. And basically that'll code for this specific enzyme, or that is native to a bacteria that degrades dioxane and basically uses it as an energy source. And so our idea is to take this code for this enzyme and put it into a different bacteria that is more usable for something to be grown on a large scale, to be able to break down a lot of dioxane. And so we're going to transform our chosen bacteria so that they express this specific enzyme, so that they can produce this protein that can come into contact with 1,4-dioxane in the water and then break it down into some components that the cell can then use for its own energy needs. So taking 1,4-dioxane, breaking it down into something that will not be harmful while present in the water. And so our end goal for this project is basically to be able to demonstrate that our bacteria can in fact break down 1,4-dioxane, and we are going to assess the efficacy of our engineered bacteria in water samples. And our reach goal is basically to be able to design a basic bioreactor. So just think like a house for bacteria to come into contact with this contaminated water and then basically work its magic. And so our end goal is to propose something like that for use in water treatment.
Yeah, just to go a little bit over the design of the bioreactor, it's not by any means like a finalized design that we have come up with. This is actually just from a different paper that looked at introducing your contaminated water, which probably also has a bunch of other waste in it. And just fixing bacteria on like a biofilm. So just like a culture of bacteria are just gonna be on some kind of like rotating discs that can get into contact in the water, and then it'll swirl. And basically, as 1,4-dioxane is taken up by these bacteria, as they come into contact with this wastewater, they will, break down the 1,4-dioxane. And then theoretically, that 1,4-dioxane could help it would feed into metabolic pathways that would help them survive. And I think there was some paper from the 1980s on Gelman's, I think it was their initial attempts at bioremediation, and they talked about how there was this a bad smell that came up. I think this was because they didn't aerate their the pond that they kind of just tried this in, and also it just wasn't a really well run out experiment. So we thought that maybe a bioreactor that's more dedicated and targeted towards this process would be much better at addressing some of those issues that they ran into 4 years ago. And then the residue from bioremediation would separate in a settling tank, and then you could filter clean water out. And to take care of bacteria that might also make its way into the clean water tank, you would do UV irradiation or something like that to kill bacteria. But this is this is just a design that we got from another paper. And I guess since our conference is in Paris in November, we won't have enough time to actually design and implement this bioreactor by then, at least before the competition. But our hope is that we can kind of show a proof of concept of the biodegradation working before we start thinking of ways that we could maybe implement this in a bioreactor. Yeah. And then we talked to a bunch of well-versed individuals in the field. I mean, Dr. La Cruz is in the meeting right now, but we talked to her about, regulatory entities, and that's how we came into contact with you guys, or I mean, happened to start coming to your meetings, which are really informational. And we also talked to a bunch of professors that are and researchers that are, interested in bioremediation of just general, compounds, not just 1,4-dioxane specific. Dr. Wong from Arizona State University, for instance, just looking at recombination of and transformation of bacteria. Dr. Lin looks at, bioreactors. Dr. Rickard works with, freshwater bacteria, etc. And Dr. Menz has helped us a lot with 1,4-dioxane detection in water. So I think we've talked to a lot of people that are really excited about what we're doing, and yeah, glad to be able to share it with you guys as well. Yeah, and I guess we just had a few questions on the next slide. Yeah, so I guess for you guys as a whole, our first question was just, what can a student group like ourselves do to spread awareness about this issue? And what's important to include in that message? What would we want to do to ask people to get involved in this kind of issue?
You want us to answer right now?
I mean, yeah, I guess.
You have to think about it. Yeah.
I guess the other questions are just, what areas could we see the solution implemented? I know there's a lot of residential areas that have testing wells, their wells have been blocked off completely. And I guess, would a smaller scale bioreactor be more useful for them? I guess these are versus a larger scale industrial process. Obviously, as I was looking at some of the statistics of the cost of the current method of 1,4-dioxane removal, which is I think UV irradiation, and they have the stats on how it's 40 to 70% effective and produces bromate, on which you were talking about earlier today. But yeah, I guess, would it be better to target a more smaller scale bioreactor for individual use? And I guess our last question was just if we plan on interviewing residents and they think that the bioreactor could be useful, what would be the best way to gather participants? Obviously, because there might be privacy concerns, etc. Are there any other considerations to take into effect? But I guess these were just the questions that we had as kind of our human practices outreach of our synthetic bio team. But yeah, any thoughts would be appreciated.
Yeah.
Jeff has his hand up, so go ahead, Jeff.
Well, just briefly, when you look at the second bullet point that you have there, it immediately comes to mind that at the main water treatment facility, we currently have some scaled water treatment. I don't know what you call it, sample trains, where they're doing various testing, and some of that came from University of Michigan funding, I believe. And so they have scale model testing happening there, or did at the water treatment plant last I was aware. And so, it's possible that you just get up in there and say, hey, we need a space in your train somewhere to test for our dioxin cracking ability, and maybe a scaled model at the treatment facility, because supposedly, I mean, I've watched in the budget where they've released many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for these various experimental treatments, or to determine what the new water treatment train is supposed to be. And so that's just the first thing I think of. I just want to mention that.
Yeah, I haven't actually heard, or I haven't actually looked into that much, I guess, but we'll definitely take a look into those.
In 2018, I saw them, or 2018 it was. We did a tour of the plant when we came on council, and they had them set up in there, and it was mostly it wasn't solely for PFAS, it was for a bunch of stuff. But they are currently in the process of redesigning the whole treatment of the new plant. And so, now's an opportunity to, I don't know, maybe that's something you could get in on.
Yeah, I think we had heard that, or I guess we just assumed that Gelman would be not very helpful in terms of trying to get access to water samples in general. But I think we talked to one of the professors on campus, Dr. Menz, and she said that she could maybe get us samples from other Superfund sites across the country. But it might be harder to get samples from the Gelman site specifically. But yeah, I guess we'll have to look into ways to approach that, I guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. From my student perspective and looking at from a health policy perspective, I think you should, with the team, take some time to figure out what the on-ramps are. So wastewater treatment and drinking water treatment is one avenue, but as many of the experts here will tell you, it's an expensive process. So you'd want to obviously show your proof of concept first, but you know, the United States is building infrastructure and replacing infrastructure, and those are extremely expensive machines and mechanisms. And once you've missed the boat with the town on a $60 million spend, it might be extremely difficult to then reintroduce your technology unless it's a slap on or a modification of an existing process. So
Sure.
as you're designing it, think about that because it is expensive. So my advice would be, and then looking at several cities around the nation who have been experiencing this problem with prolonged response times, very latent response times from government entities, is that citizens would really welcome, I think, something in the retail market that could be fitted to their immediate needs. Now, it's not taking care of the overarching issue of environmental control. That's another policy issue. But if you can find something and design something that could say, fit onto as a filter of existing drinking water, under the sink drinking water systems, I think that would be really valuable as a stopgap measure until these much broader infrastructure and policy issues are taken care of. And as this group will tell you, it's been 40 years for them.
Yeah.
So if you can find something that's a workaround for now and not replacing it, but do think smaller. I would encourage you to think smaller and then figure out
sure.
what's the regulatory process and what are the obstacles to that. Because you don't want to create something that's such a perfect machine and then nobody's gonna take it
Yeah.
out.
I think like the plan was that we wouldn't be able to get it done by like, November, obviously anyway, but I guess in terms of approaching it, that makes sense to go with a smaller model for
Just
sure.
throw out some ideas, but think
Yeah.
small, think micro, think household, think at each layer of infrastructure.
Sure.
Well, the other side of it though, Heather, is that, the smaller models or the smaller uses are already covered. The larger problems are really there. You have the Gelman site, you have the city wastewater treatment plant. It's probably discharging some dioxane, whatever the source may be. You have Allen Creek Drain, which down gradient of Allen Creek drain by the West Park area, we know has dioxane in that stormwater. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's
whatever,
not
whatever system you have should be applicable to large scale. I would think even more than small use, because for the small use, I don't see how people individually are going to be wanting to take on the remediation of dioxane unless it's in their drinking water. And I can't imagine that this thing would be large enough would be too large, excuse me, to put into like a little basement unit like you would a activated carbon system. But I would try to look at large scale and existing. Again, the Ann Arbor wastewater treatment plant probably has dioxane going out of it. And we know that Allen Creek Drain has all the free dioxane you want in their stormwater going into the Huron River. So there's two free sources, and individuals that have contaminated residential wells will probably give you all the water you want from their well that's impacted, and their wells are impacted up to 4 parts per billion.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
Thank you. We have a couple hands up, so I'm going to recognize the people who are asking to speak. Go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, thanks for working on this. I think it's a very important area that more and more contamination. Beth Collins, our secretary, is in North Carolina, and they have quite a bit of 1,4-dioxane dealing with it down there. But I would like to warn that trying to do public involvement and also trying coming up with engineering or biological systems are very complicated, obviously, and the public involvement can be, I mean, Heather will tell you, the public involvement can get very long time to come, you know, to get enough information to really make it worthwhile. And so you may have to, you know, decide one or the other, or, you know, trim back maybe part of it. But thanks again for working on it. Appreciate your efforts, and hopefully we'll hear from you later. How you're doing. Thanks.
For sure. Yeah.
Go ahead, Roger.
Well, I have some information that'll probably help you if you haven't encountered it yet. I keep track of I get feeds of new techniques and things like that, so I can share that with you at some point. Also, like Dan said, getting the sources of dioxane already in the water is not a problem. Like, you can go right to the tributary that empties into Little Lake, and you can get it from there. You do have to have a way to do your own analysis of the dioxane. So every time you have an input of a sample, you're going to want to know what is the dioxine in there. So there's that expense or mechanism.
Oh, yeah, we have that covered. We have like a testing machine for that.
Good.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
And if you want to raise money, you could hire out that machine to people that want to test their own wells.
yeah, that's part of someone else's lab, so that might be a little hard, but yeah.
I also there was another point I was going to make, and it'll come to me in a minute. But the Dr. Etzel deposition actually talks about what it takes to break down dioxane. And of the four things needed, Gelman wasn't doing any of them adequately in their treatment ponds. So there's some history on this site. It's just that we don't have access to all of the information that was done at the time. There supposedly were grids of 55-gallon drums cut in half. You think of it as like little treatment ponds. And I never got any information about where those little treatment ponds were until I just saw in this last set of documents from the NPL a photograph of pond 3 while it was being built. And what looks to me like are little sub ponds, where the company might have been trying to do this for a while back in the day. They had a grid of and they're probably trying different bacteria in different conditions and things like that. And Dr. Etzel refers to something like this in his deposition. So we can do a little digging, and maybe there's some old timers around that kind of remember that, and can provide some background on that.
Yeah, I heard that some of those ponds that you're talking about, like they overflowed, and then that's why they stopped using them.
That's documented in the complaints and stuff, because their treatment ponds weren't constructed well enough. They dug out the bottom and make it seep into the ground better because it was overflowing into the marsh area, which was not their property, and yada yada yada, and that's why we got it. But it's really important that young people like you pay attention, because if we didn't have Dan Bicknell discovering this as a graduate student back in 1984, who knows when this problem would have been brought to the surface. We have to recognize the young people's contribution in all this. So thanks, Dan, and thanks to all you guys too.
Okay, go ahead, Kathy.
Ditto what Roger said. To address your first question, I think that if you prepared a 2 or 3 minute presentation and you went to the Ann Arbor City Environmental Commission, if you went to Ann Arbor City Council, if you went to, I spoke at public comment for Scioto Township and Ann Arbor Township, you would, it's sort of a shotgun approach, but you would probably find some people who were interested and who could provide some guidance for you. CART probably has the most expertise in this area, but I would go to those other organizations, and there's very little prep time. You can, you know, contact them on Zoom even. And the other issue is water quality is something that most people are concerned about. So I would contact the Michigan Daily, because I believe that this would be an interesting article. And so the more you can increase awareness, the more likely you are to run into people who want to help you and can provide information for you. So thanks again.
Sure. That makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you, Kathy. Go ahead, Beth.
Yes, I was going to suggest Third Sister Lake, since it's U of M property. And I mean, for getting your dioxane water, or the Honey Creek outfall would be easier than trying to get into the Allen Creek drain or and even the city of Ann Arbor's water treatment plant, we don't have dioxane there. So I don't know that what Jeff was mentioning, I don't know that would, because you need dioxane to try to treat it, but.
Well, and you want a significant amount of dioxane so you can show that it works at scale.
Yeah, I think we were more concerned with, like, if we started off with like 4 parts per billion, it might be hard to like show that, you know, you've decreased a significant amount of it. Also because, like, I know like the limit of 7.2 is, you know, it probably should be a lot lower, but I guess it would be better to show or, you know, more convincing to show, like, if we started off with a higher starting an initial concentration, then dropped it to, you know, hopefully around 7 or whatever parts per billion.
What are the lakes? Is Little Lake have more than Third Sister Lake, Roger?
Well, Little Lake is around 4 to 7 parts per billion.
What isn't 16 to 20 in Third Sister Lake?
No, that was at a certain layer.
Oh,
It got up to 60 at one point, but that varies so much by rainfall on that.
how can they get into like one of the wells that has a
Well, a
lot?
lot of that's from sediment, I think. You know, I would stick with a continuous source that's within a certain range of parts per billion. So
I would like to make it clear though that the Allen Creek constantly has flow, groundwater flow. So West Park, where the Allen Creek is contained to some extent, is at the bottom of the glacial till, and so it's got a lot of groundwater coming out of the glacial tills that are coming, you know, down the hill. And so we had EGLE, the state of Michigan, test Allen Creek and West Park because it was constant water flow even during a drought.
Yeah.
So
Well,
and that was as high. That was
the amount of dioxane, the bounce up of dioxane in Allen Creek is not a good.
Jumps up and down somewhat.
It's not a good source for there, because they want something more constant. So they can say, okay, we're having this constant, you know, this range of dioxane.
Oh, I don't know. I
Tweak
think
a little bit above them. Otherwise, they have to account for the very big variations. I think the closer you go back to the source. In fact, why don't we just see if we can get it from the discharge point? Because that is pretty constant range. That would be the best place to get the dioxane sample.
And I think it's 22 parts per billion, isn't it?
Where is that at?
No, they discharge 7 parts per billion or less.
Oh, okay.
And it varies. It could get down to maybe 4, and it might bounce up to 10, but somewhere in that range, 4 to 10 or 11 is usually where they and the monthly average, of course, has to be under 10.
Alrighty then. We're getting close to the end of our time here. So any other?
That was a very good presentation.
Yes. And you know, you can contact Roger or most of the people on the screen right now, and we can meet with you and have further discussions about what we know about the plume and try to give you some ideas. You know, this is one of the things that Heather did, was she held small group meetings to have a better in-depth discussion about what she wanted to.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of us that know way too much about dioxane and similar things than we ever should.
Yes.
And we have contacts in other parts of the other parts of the nation that we can, tap and see, help you make contacts that way too. So
yeah,
That would be great.
We have
Yeah.
nightmares.
Yep. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and know that we want to assist you in any fashion that we can. And with that thought, I'm going to move on the agenda. Are there any non-agenda items that anyone wants to bring up at this point in the meeting? Seeing none, I'll remind you that the next meeting is a quarterly meeting, and it'll be at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, June 4th. Thanks, everybody, for attending. I thought this was a pretty good meeting, considering EPA and EGLE weren't here. Thanks again.
Thanks, Jack. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
the next meeting might be worth coming to with the EGLE, and some of the quarterly meetings pretty regularly.
We'll have 150 comments items to review.
Thank you, everyone. And thanks to the team.
Thanks, everyone, for showing up.
And Sophia, did you guys get the emails at your email there for the whole team? Okay, good.
Yeah, just in case anyone here didn't have access to it, we're always
Great.
willing to talk. So yep.
Before I leave here, your team is pretty big. So are you guys meeting during the summer? Are you guys going to school during the summer? Is this only in the fall, or what's the time frame on this?
Yeah, we run year round. So all of our members contribute in some capacity over the summer. That's when we do the bulk of our experimentation. So not many people are taking classes, but most people are local to Ann Arbor for the summer. So yes, most of our work gets done during the summer, and then we do a lot of research and competition material prep during the academic semesters.
Have you taken a tour of the site?
No,
we have not.
That might be a good thing for everybody to do.
Yeah,
that would be really cool, actually.
Yeah, and I remember I got a video of Dan Bicknell taking a camera crew around explaining how he discovered the dioxane in the first place in the Third Sister Lake. He'd probably be willing to share that video.
how much dioxane is in the Montgomery well?
2 to 4.
Oh, that's not. We need them to have access to a lot.
Well, a little bit more than
There's
that, probably. Yeah.
There's an EGLE map. I'm going to send it to him. There's an EGLE map that shows the concentrations of 1,4-dioxane in various stormwater drains, and it's not as variable as some of the discussion here has made it seem.
I don't think we know, because they don't.
Well, I got a map from EGLE.
Yeah, but where's that data? You realize they don't sample continuously.
They've got the data. This is data from the stormwater sampling and
surface water.
Not
Yeah,
that variable. I'll just send it. I'll
You
copy
don't-
you
you
on it,
don't-
Roger.
here's
I
another
don't want to
reason.
argue about it. Okay.
You don't want to be using stormwater for when you just want to isolate dioxane, though, because you're going to have to treat the stormwater for other things.
Well, if they want water from the environment, that's all I'm saying. They can throw it away if they want. I'll copy you on it, Roger. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not something we should be arguing about.
I mean, it's an option, but
I wonder, if they could get water from one of the wells that has high 100 parts per billion, even.
Well, then it's get one of the purge wells.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're working on one right now, right on Wagner. They got the crane. They're pulling the liner yesterday.
The
Or
purge
BMF as
wells are
well,
under
yes.
the control of the polluter, aren't they?
Yes.
Yes, purge is under control of the polluter.
And so they're not likely to cooperate.
If you could
Well-
get EGLE to partner with you, then that's another source.
yeah.
Surely the
monitoring
university can
wells.
give you a vial of dioxin.
Oh no, we can buy dioxine. Like we buy
Yeah.
like standards of
I
dioxine
mean-
already.
You can
Like, we
make
were just
your
like,
own polluted water.
yeah,
Yeah.
we made our own polluted water actually really recently.
Right, right.
And we dispose of it, don't worry, properly. But
Yeah.
like we were just thinking like if we want to try on like real life things, it might be better to have like wells with higher concentrations, but obviously it might be hard to get to them. Or
Yeah.
like if they're on someone's private property, it might be hard to.
I
So if this was like a real thing that you did, like it came into play and you're pulling this groundwater, and aren't there other like bacteria and all kinds of other things in groundwater naturally occurring that would have to be sort of taken into consideration as you manipulate genetically bacteria and things, or your bacteria are grown elsewhere and then sort of applied through these plate passing over the plate? Okay.
Yeah, that second thing. That is true. That is a concern that like, you don't want the plasma to spread between bacteria. And that's why I guess because our season is so short, we just wanted to like do something quick that actually, or quick enough by November that would show like replicable results. Theoretically, if we were to actually implement this in a bioreactor, you'd want to do like chromosomal editing, which which takes like, a little bit longer. You need to like do more confirmatory mechanisms. But yeah, I guess if you were to, I guess you don't want to spread all your bacteria or spread the plasmid to the other bacteria. But I guess that would be taken care of by like, a secondary chamber in the bioreactor, for instance, that would, hopefully kill all the bacteria with like hydrogen peroxide or UV.
You guys in there with CRISPR or something? How you doing that?
You can do CRISPR. There's also like transposon stuff. It's like I actually don't understand the full details.
My kid started out doing this, and then now he changed to cognitive science, but he just graduated. But he started out being interested in this. He was in Gaitis and all that with genes and expressions and all that stuff.
Sophie and I both did that.
Yeah, right on. It sounded like that kind of thing.
Yeah, similar, I guess.
All right, thanks. We're coming up on the end here. I'm going to stop the recording.
All right.
Before we get into intellectual property problems here.